2020, a house in rural Oregon. If you were to visit this house, inside you'd find a man, a woman, and a child harvesting food from the surrounding farmland, living a normal family life. But the longer you stayed here, the more questions you'd start to have. Why are there barcodes on the freshly harvested vegetables? Why does it feel like this man and this woman don't actually know each other? What is it about these photos that feels so wrong? What is the large clock on the wall counting down to 0, and why is it snowing in July? Was this really the same child that was here just a second ago? What is wrong with this house's mirrors, and who are these strange men who creep in through its windows at night, silently take the child, and leave behind an eerie, lifelike robot? What is happening here? What is this place? And the answer is that this house is a reflection. It is a reflection of a man, and that man is Nathan Fielder. If this is your first time encountering Nathan Fielder, he's hosted 2 different reality TV shows, Nathan For You and The Rehearsal, and I need you to understand how strange this man's mind is. One segment from Nathan For You involves Nathan helping a struggling gas station, his plan being to sell gas at $1.75 per gallon, which does draw in customers, only for those customers to be charged full price for the gas and told that they actually claim back the discount through a tax rebate, which can only be filed in a mysterious rebate box somewhere on the side of a mountain. And when people actually take Nathan up on this, he ends up leading them on an elaborate mountainside riddle hunt that transforms into a 17-hour overnight hike before finally, the next morning, Nathan reveals there never was any rebate box. There is an uncanniness to Nathan. The way he moves, the way he speaks, the way he interacts with people, he's awkward. He doesn't pick up on social cues, he makes jokes that don't land, and his conversations frequently plummet into vacuums of uncomfortable silence.
When you look at me, you probably see a guy who has it all. But really, there's a large part of me that's immature and underdeveloped. If you want to hang out sometime time outside, I don't know. It's fine. We don't have to, it's fine, yeah. You know I'm not your real dad, right?
Wait, what?
It's like there's this invisible barrier between Nathan and everyone else. Like he's this outsider looking in on the rest of humanity, trying so hard to act like a person, but is unsure of what a person is. And Nathan's aware of this. In fact, he tries very hard to overcome it. He will map out conversations on these intricate, elaborate flowcharts, accounting for every response, every variable, in the hopes of guiding his interactions towards a favorable outcome. He will even control scenarios and manipulate people, like taking a person to a shooting range for the purposes of growing closer to them, only to secretly load the rifles with blanks in the hopes that the two will bond over their mutual failure.
Wow, we're not good at this.
If this is your first experience of Nathan, by now you may be asking the inevitable question everyone does. Is this person real? Is Nathan Fielder an actual, genuine human being, or are we watching a bizarre comedy character played by an actor? Or is there maybe a much stranger third option that will unfold over the course of this video? Well, friends, after watching Nathan's recent show, The Rehearsal, which incidentally is 6 of the most compelling, strange, and disturbing episodes of television I've ever seen, that is a question I have put the last 8 weeks of my life in attempting to answer. So join me on this very strange journey as we ask, what is Nathan Fielder? Wow, what a fascinating question. And before we answer it, a brief word from our sponsor, ExpressVPN. You know, sometimes everyone's talking about that big new TV show like, I don't know, The Rehearsal or House of the Dragon, and your friend Sydney kind of won't shut up about it even though she knows that HBO Max isn't available in your region and you can't watch it, and it starts to feel a bit passive aggressive, and it's like, Jesus Christ, Sydney, if you just filled the void in your life with anything other than television shows, then maybe Mark wouldn't have left you! To avoid friendship obliterating scenarios like this one, I like to use ExpressVPN, which lets me change my online location to access the same global content as, well, everyone else, whether that's watching shows only available on other countries' Netflix, like the entirety of the Studio Ghibli library being available on UK Netflix, watching BBC iPlayer, which is free but only to people in the UK, or being able to watch the American football blackout games, which I'm told is a thing. I've been using ExpressVPN for 3 years now. I genuinely find it extremely useful, and I think you will as well. Find out how you can get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free by visiting expressvpn.com/eyepatchwolf or clicking the link in the description below. Okay, Nathan Fielder. As a socially inept man in my 30s, I like to think I can recognize my own, and so when I look at Nathan, honestly, I kind of get it. Though you would never be able to tell it from these videos, I too can be kind of awkward. I too don't always understand why people react to me the way they do, and I have been told that my mannerisms and ways of speaking can sometimes come across as a little strange. I remember in primary school, this boy spread the rumor that I was a robot, and a lot of the other kids believed him, and then they told me that I wasn't allowed to play rounders with them because robots aren't allowed to play sports. So I relate. I understand how behavior like this could come from a genuine place, and so I decided if this really was just a fictional character, all I needed to do to prove that was find footage of Nathan breaking character. Something that, as you may be able to tell from the remaining runtime on this video, was a lot less simple than I thought it would be. I wanted to track down any footage of Nathan from outside his TV shows, i.e. situations where he was not acting and would not have editorial control over, namely real-life interviews. But immediately I hit a problem. See, Nathan has appeared on dozens of late-night talk shows, but in each one, in character, and often with what feels like pre-prepared bits.
Nathan, for you, I go to real small businesses and I give them out-of-the-box or innovative ways they can better market themselves or improve their business.
And so I started to look for smaller, more intimate interviews, moments that feel like someone just pulled Nathan in front of a camera that he wouldn't have time to prepare for. But even in those, Nathan was Nathan.
There is actually a story. I was going to do it at the end, but I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
I was actually your table counselor. So I sat down and I just yelled out spontaneous fun with sugar. And it got to you, and I have to say, Nathan, you just handed me the sugar, and I said, Nathan, did you have fun with that sugar? You said no. You lost the game.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's the entire story.
I mean, I guess I wasn't that good.
This is Nathan Fielder. Nathan, if you could be one character from a children's book, who would you be and why?
Well, I would of course be Tintin, because he's just, everyone likes to be unsure if you're bald or not, and best of luck to the charity.
The same stilted speech pattern, the same unsure feeling of what to say and how to act. Even in higher profile written interviews, Nathan is Nathan. He makes jokes that don't land and talks about how hard he's trying not to make the conversation too awkward. I even tracked down an old Nathan For You DVD box set that had director's commentary on selected episodes, but, well...
One time I was in grade 8 and this girl invited me back to her house and we were talking and then we were laying on her bed and then she actually laid on top of me, like body to body, like face to face, and her face was like an inch from mine and she clearly expected me to kiss her. And I was just so worried that if I did it, she'd be like, "What are you doing?"
If this really was a character, it was a convincing one. But where this started to get kind of bizarre was when I dug up some old photos of Nathan as a teenager. The thing that strikes me about these photos is in how nearly every one there's something exciting happening. A party, a hot tub, a dance night, people laughing and having a good time. But then, on the outskirts, there's Nathan. This awkward, unsure teenager on the outside looking in. You can practically see the space between Nathan and other people in these photos in a way that feels so consistent with both Nathan from the rehearsal as well as those interviews. And it was hard not to look at these photos and not feel something real. Whatever evidence I had expected to find here, I hadn't. And so I was gonna need to dive deeper. I was going to need to rewatch every episode of Nathan Fielder's previous TV show, Nathan For You. Every episode of Nathan For You starts the same.
My name is Nathan Fielder, and I graduated from one of Canada's top business schools with really good grades.
And immediately, bam, a potential smoking gun. Did Nathan actually graduate from business college? And in my research, he did. He graduated from the University of British Columbia with a degree in business communication and even spent a time working for a real-life brokerage firm. I'm not really sure why I left this part in the video. In each episode, Nathan uses his business expertise to help the owners of a struggling small business. And those plans are, well, making a realtor's unique selling point that her homes are not haunted, selling discount Santa visits in July, or an ad campaign belittling children into buying an unpopular toy.
If you are between the ages of 3 and 8, please listen closely. Owning a doinkit is now the only proof that you are not a baby. Tell your mom or dad to buy you a doinkit, because otherwise, as far as anyone's concerned, you're a baby.
These are all real suggestions Nathan gave real people in real life. And even writing this, it's like, oh, of course, this is an actor playing a silly character. It's obvious. But here's the thing. Several of those ideas actually worked. Nathan at multiple points has made international news headlines and even started legitimate businesses. And what really makes this all so much more convincing than it should be is Nathan himself. No matter how bizarre Nathan's plans are, there's always this kernel of logic, some unconventional but believable way of thinking, with Nathan never for a second breaking character or acting in a way that feels inconsistent with either the teenager from those photos or the man from those interviews. Nathan For You never blinks. It never tells you to laugh or lets you know it's a joke. That's a conclusion you have to come to yourself, and that's because no matter how ludicrous Nathan's plans are, Nathan is always able to lay them out with this straight-faced determination, convince real people to go along with them, and then follow those plans through with a conviction that really makes it seem like he believes they could work. In one episode, Nathan attempts to help a struggling electronics store, Spears TV, which is being run out of business by the local Best Buy, and his plan is for Spears TV to run a limited time promotion where they sell TVs for $1 and then use Best Buy's price match policy to buy out their entire stock of TVs for just a few dollars. But this creates a problem. How does Nathan stop people from entering Spears TV and buying out all their televisions while the promotion is running? And the answer is that he implements a strict formal dress code for the store, then forces anyone who is determined enough to meet that code to crawl through a tiny door where they then must pass through one final room containing a live alligator. This all actually happened with real people. In another episode, Nathan convinces a sporting goods store to sign low-cost endorsement deals with child sports enthusiasts in the hopes that they will grow into professional athletes, having already signed an endorsement deal with the store. And when Nathan discovers that his top prospect wants to be an astronaut and not an athlete, he hires a fake astronaut, leading to this exchange.
My whole life has just been a nightmare. It's a terrible experience. You know, most of my friends have died in space or gone insane from the unimaginable loneliness of being there.
As an aside, I just want to say, this is all fucking hilarious. Nathan For You is some of the most entertaining TV I have seen in the last decade. Episodes like Dumb Starbucks, in which Nathan makes a carbon copy of a Starbucks but protects it under parody law by calling it Dumb Starbucks serving dumb venti lattes, are about as perfect a 22 minutes of television as you can get. However, in terms of how real Nathan is, it was rewatching Nathan For You that I started to have my doubts. I'd forgotten just how silly some of Nathan's ideas are. One involves Nathan convincing people to take, well, compromising photos of themselves that will be shown to their friends and family unless they can hit their weight loss goals. Another involves Nathan building a mechanical claw that will undo his pants, exposing him to an audience of children, at which point a real-life on-stage police officer will take Nathan to prison, where he will be charged as a sex offender unless he can undo the handcuffs and escape in time. And again, this is all very funny, if slightly disturbing, but as ideas a genuine person would submit in good faith, it seemed like too far. And the more I watched and the more I learned about Nathan Fielder's personal life, the more inconsistencies began to emerge. In one episode, which for the sake of brevity I will just describe as Nathan stealing the skin of another man and taking over his life, it's such a weird episode, I swear to God, involves a disguised Nathan going on a date with a woman named Jasmine, who we're told is a regular person Nathan met on OkCupid, and that is not true. I was able to dig up this old Reddit thread where Jasmine talks about her experience on the show, and she never actually had an OkCupid. Those sections were all inserted after her scenes were shot. So then, how did they meet? Well, the answer to that is that Jasmine is actually a paid actor who auditioned for this part. And while she was not acting in these scenes, she did confirm that they were heavily edited, splicing in dialogue from unused portions of the episode to create conversations that never happened. And while this might not say anything about Nathan himself, what it shows is an attempt to create a fabricated narrative and sell it as real. What I think is so interesting about this is that the idea of fabricating reality, of creating something that seems real but is actually an illusion, is a narrative that comes up in Nathan For You over and over and over. In one episode, Nathan is tasked with improving a haunted house, and to do this, he tricks the house's guests into thinking they've contracted a contagious skin disease, loading them into a hospital van where men in hazmat suits forcibly try and quarantine them before revealing that this was all just part of the haunted house. There's a lot of misdirection in Nathan For You, a lot of manipulating people into believing something that isn't real. And what I find so curious about this is that while Nathan did go to business school, he's also a lifelong magician and is even a member of the Magic Castle, an organization of highly skilled performers specializing in the arts of illusion and misdirection. Had I been wrong? Was this all too some kind of illusion? And where that unease turned into straight up suspicion was when I learned that Nathan was also a member of his high school's sketch comedy club, captained by Seth Rogen. Oh, the Seth Rogen bit doesn't really matter. I just thought it was, you know, small world. The more I was learning about Nathan, the less sense any of this made. But there was a much bigger revelation coming. One of Nathan's consistent character traits over the course of Nathan For You is his debilitating social anxiety, and especially around women, which he himself describes as a chronic nervousness. And in order to overcome this, Nathan sets up an elaborate reality dating show called The Hunk, in which he dates 10 women at the same time. And it's a really fun episode and mildly heartwarming, if a little questionable, as Nathan does slowly grow more comfortable around women. The only thing is, at this point, Nathan had actually been married for 3 years, having met his real-life wife Sarah Zhokowska in 2007 and marrying her in 2011. This episode being shot in late 2013, early 2014. And there it was, the first real splinter between the Nathan For You character and the real-life Nathan Fielder. And the further I dove into Nathan's past, the more inconsistencies began to emerge. Nathan's first big break was on the news show This Hour Has 22 Minutes, in which he starred in 2 segments, Nathan's Nook and Nathan on Your Side.
And now 22's Nathan Fielder gives us his take on this week's politics in Nathan's Nook.
You know what's really pissing me off these days? Those jokers up on Parliament Hill.
While he still plays the same awkward Nathan Fielder in these segments, the difference here is there is now a much more direct and obvious attempt at comedy. Like in one section, which is meant to be a consumer advocacy bit on what to look for when buying an MP3 player, but the gag of the scene is how Nathan consistently sandbags the sales clerk.
Have you seen the new iPod MP3 players available?
Oh yeah, I'm not really interested in an MP3 player.
No? Would you like to see what I'm speaking about?
That's okay, I'll just have a look around by myself, I think.
Other segments involve Nathan interviewing a worker at an animal shelter, the gag being that Nathan is severely allergic to animals, which we know he isn't from future shows, or Nathan making strained political analogies while pulling out an increasingly elaborate array of props from his jacket. The difference between these segments and everything else we've talked about is here, each section has a defined, obvious joke, and that, plus the addition of a laugh track, means these sections blink. They want you to know this is not real, that you are meant to laugh. And at this point, the idea of Nathan Fielder being anything other than a comedy character played by an actor was starting to feel a little silly. And yet, there was one more piece of evidence that would settle this matter entirely. Something I stumbled across while searching for Nathan's appearances on old comedy specials is Nathan actually has a personal YouTube channel. And while his most recent videos are very much him in character, what's interesting is the channel actually goes back 16 years. Its first videos posted in 2006, some of which are surreal sketches which feel inspired by the likes of Mr. Show, but some feel like prototypes for the Nathan For You character. One video titled Job Hunt starts with Nathan telling the audience about how he's been fired from his job and wants to make a documentary on how hard it is to find employment in Toronto. However, before he's even done shaving, Nathan gets a phone call telling him he's been hired for a new job, destroying the entire concept of the documentary. The boom mic falls awkwardly into shot and we see the documentary crew in the background, who Nathan now must awkwardly fire. What I think's interesting here is how this moment breaks the artifice of what you're watching. This is a documentary that goes wrong, and this isn't the only time Nathan messes with viewer expectation like this. In another video titled Simply the Best, Nathan is hanging out with a girl before he begins silently wording the lyrics of the Howie Day song Collide to her. And while I do not cringe because I am too strong, that definitely feels like the intention here. Look at this idiot embarrassing himself. But what's really interesting is what happens in the last 30 seconds. The singing trails off, and both Nathan and this girl turn and stare silently into camera. Stare at you. And you should watch this video. It is deeply uncomfortable, nearly accusatory. Before this moment, you were the audience. You were this voyeuristic entity observing this third-hand humiliation. But this moment changes that. Now you become part of the narrative, nearly like you're being asked, why are you watching this? What are you getting out of it? And what does that say about you as a person? However, there was an even bigger smoking gun here, and it came in the form of a 1.5-minute long video where Nathan is not Nathan at all. He's psychic Ronald Shube.
My first book, Me Psychic, You Psychic, talked about how we all have psychic powers and how to stay connected with yourself and with the spirit world. Spirits communicate with me, and my body is just a vessel. So I invite everyone to come inside me.
So, this is Nathan playing a fictional character for comedy with a self-awareness that's completely incompatible with the Nathan portrayed in Nathan For You. And honestly, I started to feel really foolish at this point. I felt dumb for getting drawn into the illusion like I had and started to question everything. Like, even those photos of Nathan as a teenager, were these real photos or were they also part of the illusion? Could they have been faked? I mean, Nathan is wearing the same pair of pants in 3 of these photos, and did that suggest a stage shoot with a limited wardrobe, or did teenage Nathan just really like these pants? And when I tried to trace the source of these images, it led me back to a Tumblr blog that had been deleted in 2015, 2 years after Nathan For You began. I couldn't know what that meant, but what I did know was I had found definitive proof. Nathan Fielder was not real. He was a fictional character portrayed by a comedy actor as genuine as the psychic Ronald Shube. So I guess there we go. Mystery solved, illusion shattered. You're welcome, everybody. So why is there still so long left in this video? Well, everything we just talked about is a conclusion I came to, but that was before something happens. And that thing was... I rewatched the final episode of Nathan For You, an episode called Finding Francis. Even by Nathan For You standards, Finding Francis is unusual. Unlike a regular episode, it's not 22 minutes long, but an hour and a half. And unlike a regular episode, it's not about Nathan helping a small business or launching some publicity stunt, but finding a missing person. At various points during Nathan For You, Nathan works with professional Bill Gates impersonator Bill Heath.
When we started our computers back in the 80s, it was huge.
Bill had taken to showing up at Nathan's studio, hanging around and telling stories. And the one story he'd tell repeatedly was about his long-lost love, a woman named Frances. Nathan decides he wants to help Bill find Frances, and the two embark on a kind of road trip together. But as the journey goes on, and the more Nathan finds out about Bill, the more concerned he grows about who Bill actually is and what might happen if they really do find Frances.
I am disgusted with you of all this talk and gossip about you and Gloria.
In order to gauge how Bill will behave in a romantic situation, Nathan hires an escort, Macy, who has experience with older male clients. An encounter Bill unceremoniously turns down.
I hate to use that term, you gotta know what you're sticking it in.
Jesus, Bill.
Yeah, Jesus, Bill. And so Nathan decides he will meet Macy himself to ask her about her experiences with older men. And what follows is one of the most baffling scenes in Nathan For You. Not because Nathan is awkward, but because he isn't. Nathan seems genuinely fascinated by Macy's insight into the escort industry, and she in turn seems curious about him. It's strange watching Nathan have chemistry with someone, but stranger still is what happens next. Nathan does something he's never done with a single other person over the entire course of the show. He shows Macy Nathan For You. And Macy calls him out on it. She says he's mean for misleading people, and when she does, you can see Nathan struggle to maintain the illusion.
You lied to every last one of them.
I mean, it's
You're
business.
like mean funny.
As Nathan runs into dead end after dead end in the search for Frances, he finds himself alone most evenings, and in those moments, his thoughts go back to Macy, and so he sets up another date with her. But this time, watch what happens when Macy tells Nathan she thinks his show is funny.
Oh, yeah.
That one was really funny.
Thank you, Macy. That's really nice of you to say.
He is delighted. He accepts the compliment. And what's so crazy about this is that at no other point during Nathan For You, or even in any of the interviews I found, does Nathan acknowledge the joke, acknowledge the illusion, except now, except with Macy. And in doing so, the artifice comes crumbling down. So, who are we now actually watching? If everything up till now had been a fictional character, is this now the real Nathan Fielder, or was there always an element of reality here? And the kind of unsettling part is that those are all questions Nathan himself seems to be losing the answers to.
When you prioritize your career for too long, you just become desperate for any human connection. And the more we kept shooting things, the harder it was to tell where the show ended and life began.
Watching this episode made me feel back at square one. I genuinely didn't know if I was now seeing the real Nathan Fielder or just being taken in by a deeper layer of the illusion. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about the parts of Nathan For You that aren't funny, the more I thought about the strange personal narrative that forms over the course of the show. Nathan Fielder is this person who wants to believe he understands business, wants to believe he understands people, but during the filming of his show, he realizes that he isn't that he has no idea how to connect to people, that people find him weird and strange and off-putting.
I have no faith in your competence in this business. I have no faith in your judgment whatsoever.
No, but you're so weird.
No, Jonathan, I'm not weird.
You are crazy.
No, I'm normal.
You're very manipulative and conniving, and I don't like it.
For all I know, you're crazy.
You know what you are? You remind me of the Wizard of Loneliness, because you're your own self, your own wizard. Look at you in a pink shirt and everything else. Oh, you're killing me.
But Nathan also discovers a way that he can artificially overcome this. And you can see this particularly in that episode of The Hunk, when Nathan realizes that he can create scenarios to surround himself with people and affection. And this is a constant throughout the show after this point. In 2 other episodes, Nathan needs to hire an actor for a scheme, and in both those sections, he very quickly develops feelings for those actors.
And I told you I was in character, but I feel like there might have been some of me in there. And say, I love you.
Okay. I love you.
Again.
I love you.
Again.
I love you.
Again.
You have tears in your eyes. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even with Macy, for as genuine as their chemistry seems, Nathan is paying Macy for her company. Even the realest moments of Nathan for You are artificial. But the strangest instances of this artificiality are the times when Nathan literally becomes another person. Once by basically focus testing his entire personality, leading to him having what I can only describe as serious Mark Zuckerberg trying to be human energy.
So tell me about your foot massage parlor.
And in another where he has to attend a stranger's wedding while wearing another man's clothes, and yet another in that infamous episode where he steals a man's skin. But in those latter 2, what's so interesting is how Nathan finds himself nearly more comfortable as another person than he is himself.
There was something about being in another person's skin that made all my social anxiety vanish. I was able to charm complete strangers. It was a side of me I had never seen before.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, of course.
And as it came to an end, I actually felt a bit sad, knowing that I'd soon have to go back to being me.
He has fun. He connects to people. And there is no joke here. There is no punchline. It's just there. Just these moments where Nathan seems more comfortable inhabiting a reality that isn't real. And so, while Nathan For You is a comedy show, there is also running through it this strange story of a person coming to understand the space between himself and other people, and constructing these artificial scenarios and identities to overcome it. But as he does, he slowly starts to lose track of himself. He stops being able to tell what's simulated and what isn't, and that is where we leave him in the final episode of Finding Francis, and find him 3 years later in the first episode of The Rehearsal. With this new context, I rewatched The Rehearsal, but now even little details that seemed like nothing before felt like these major revelations. In Nathan For You, Nathan actively avoids bringing up his marriage because it breaks the Nathan For You character. But in The Rehearsal's first episode, he actually talks about his real life divorce.
I was married for 3 years.
If the person we were watching before was a fictional character and we could tell that because of the differences between that character and the actual person, what does it mean when those differences disappear? When the rehearsal began, Nathan Fielder really was a man in his late 30s, really was divorced, and according to the narrative of the show, really was scared of ending up alone. An anxiety you can see form in the Finding Francis episode, where Nathan starts to view Bill as this ominous figure of his future. This man, old and alone and at the end of his life. And it scares Nathan, that fear seeming to be what drives him further down the path of artificiality, first in the form of Macy, but then later with a broader realization. With enough resources, he can create scenarios where intimacy is inevitable and the potential pain of that intimacy can be eliminated. And that is what leads to the concept of rehearsals. Artificial scenarios with fabricated sets and professional actors. Strange pocket realities where real people engage in these bizarre simulations of major moments of their lives before they happen that can be repeated over and over and over, with Nathan guiding the process, creating for people these elaborate flowcharts that are meant to guide them to the optimum level of human connection. But as the rehearsal goes on, we see the same troubling behaviors start to emerge in Nathan. We watch as he manipulates people, telling them their rehearsal has ended, only for it to follow them out into real life. Nathan again trapping people in these false realities. And we again watch Nathan insert himself into those uncanny realities as he crawls again into the skin of real people, working their jobs, living in their homes, taking over their lives. And finally, we see him create a fabricated version of the life he wishes he had, surrounding himself with a fake family and artificial home in rural Oregon. This was originally meant to be the rehearsal of Angela, a very strange woman who is real, trust me, I have seen her TikToks, who wants to know what it would be like to raise a child from 0 to 18 years old, leading to an elaborate rehearsal with multiple child actors, artificial seasons, and mirrors that simulate the passing of time. After Angela has trouble finding a partner to become her fake husband in the rehearsal, Nathan volunteers himself. But as he does, he grows more obsessive in creating the perfect simulation, even fast forwarding and rewinding time, trying to fix the mistakes he's made and achieve an optimum life. But slowly, it's the parts of the rehearsal that Nathan can't control that start to break. Angela grows exhausted, both with the bizarre scenario and Nathan, and decides to leave, leaving Nathan alone with their artificial son, Adam, who in reality is a child actor, Remy. And it's here things go very, very wrong. See, Nathan and Remy have a genuine connection. They seem to share the same goofy sense of humor and have fun together. However, Remy grew up in a single-parent household, and never having known his father, begins to see Nathan as his real-life dad outside the rehearsal. And when Nathan tries to explain to him that that isn't the case, that this is all pretend, Remy is devastated. He can't accept it, and it's genuinely awful. Like, it's really morally questionable. Over and over, we've watched Nathan pull people into his illusions, but now an actual, real, innocent child has become trapped in one. And though Remy does seem to be okay by the end of the episode, it's a frightening display of negligence from Nathan, and an unquestionably shitty outcome for a scenario he created. But maybe the most unsettling part is that while this should be for Nathan a moment of clarity in how broken what he's doing is, instead it has the opposite effect on Nathan. Now consumed by guilt over how he's hurt Remy, he starts to create rehearsals of his rehearsal, replaying the scenario over and over, trying to figure out what went wrong, how he could have fixed it, but nothing works. He always ends up back here, with each attempt sinking further and further into his own artificial realities. Before finally, in a moment of genuine horror that I am not going to spoil, Nathan is completely unable to distinguish his own identity from the fictional personas he has created. As the credits rolled on that final episode, I sat there, baffled. Was this now real, or was this too just all an extended part of the illusion? And I genuinely didn't know. It was like the closer I looked, the more blurred the line between what was real and what isn't became. And why did I care? Why was I now spending weeks of my life trying to figure out if this person, who I will never meet, was real? And what does that even say about me? As those questions turned over and over inside me, I was struck with that same eerie feeling of Nathan staring deep into camera, making you question what you are watching and why. I was losing perspective. This video was crawling inside my brain and making me crazy in a way that far too many videos have done in the past year. And so I decided I needed a different approach. I needed to come at this from another angle. Years ago, I remember seeing this old stand-up act where a comedian unsuccessfully tries to host a variety act in front of a live crowd, and it absolutely bombs. With each passing minute, the audience grows more bored and vocal, and as they do, the comedian becomes increasingly frustrated. He begins shouting at the crowd, asking what he's meant to do, what they want from him. And as tears begin to roll down his face, the audience's confused giggles turn to hushed murmurs. And there's just this moment of like, oh God, is this real? Am I actually watching a person break? Before the man's wailing sobs transform into a ridiculous musical number. This man was Andy Kaufman, and Kaufman was blurring the line between reality and fiction years before Nathan Fielder even existed. He first rose to fame as the character Latka on the popular sitcom Taxi, before hellfire nuking his public image in a series of deranged stunts. He would dive bomb any talk show segment he was a part of. His act would consist of him ordering ice cream from actual waiters of the venue and then eating that ice cream silently over the course of several minutes. At one point, he even declared himself the gender-neutral champion of the world and would challenge real women from his audiences to live wrestling matches, claiming to be undefeated after 400 exhibitions. And people despised him for it. People hated Andy, including actual professional wrestler Jerry the King Lawler, who shared this very real-seeming exchange with Kaufman on Letterman. It was only a decade later when it was revealed that this was all a work, that Lawler and Kaufman were actually friends, and this isn't even the strangest example of Kaufman blurring reality and fiction. Tony Clifton was an obnoxious, offensive lounge singer who would occasionally open for Andy, as well as co-starring on Taxi. And this man was a train wreck wrapped inside a nightmare. He would viciously insult people in the audience to the point that they would grow visibly upset. He'd perform horrible, off-tune musical numbers, ignoring the boos of the crowd, and would grow irate if anyone ever asked him about Andy. At one point, he even showed up to the set of Taxi drunk and with 2 sex workers, resulting in him being fired from the show. But the thing is, Andy Kaufman was Tony Clifton. Clifton was a persona Kaufman had created, the fact that they were the same person being a widely known Hollywood secret. But where this all grows truly maddeningly bizarre was with the untimely death of Kaufman due to lung cancer in 1984, when years later at Kaufman's memorial, Tony Clifton would emerge, fueling mass conspiracies that Kaufman was not dead, that even his death was just another part of this elaborate illusion. Andy Kaufman has been dead, or has he? No, I think he has, for nearly 40 years. But to this day, we are still fascinated by that quivering line between person and persona, both in how we still obsess over Kaufman, but also just modern day social media, where every day we create our own persona as well as hyperfixate on others, trying to pick apart what is real and what isn't. And there's something so bizarrely compelling about that concept. And if you want to see what I'm talking about here, look no further than one of the most modern and infamous examples of it, YouTuber Nikocado Avocado. Nicholas Perry originally came to prominence online through his vegan content, as well as his extremely skillful violin play. But as time went on, Nick's style of video transitioned into mukbang content, i.e. someone who eats large quantities of food on camera, with Nick's new eating habits resulting in him putting on a substantial amount of weight. And as his body transformed, a strange persona started to emerge. He would move and gyrate in these bizarre ways. His manner of speaking became dramatic and cartoonish. He'd go off on these insane, unhinged rants, all in a way that seemed designed to draw as much ire, ridicule, and attention as possible. There's been a lot of conversations about how right or wrong what Perry is doing is, and I have little interest in repeating any of it. But the reason it's relevant for this video is how the wall between the real-life Nicholas Perry and the Nikocado Avocado character seems to be deteriorating. The real-life Nicholas Perry does actually seem to be suffering from real-life health problems from the weight gain, and while it'd be pretty shitty of me to project my own values onto Perry, it's hard to imagine he doesn't feel strongly about that and everything that's happened to him. A lot of people worry about his mental health, gaps in his content being met with widespread concern over his safety, but it's impossible to know how much of that is real or how much of it's just part of the act. But there's times when it feels like both. Less so in his YouTube videos, but more so on his TikTok, where in one video, Nick, surrounded by this massive quantity of food, just sits there, playing this deeply melancholic tune on his violin, this instrument that used to mean so much to him, used to be the center of his world, that he still plays so beautifully. For as silly as Nikocado Avocado's videos can be, I find something genuinely beautiful and haunting about this video. There's this real sense of longing for the way things were, but being trapped in what they are. Like you're watching both the person and the persona clawing to get to the surface, but endlessly entangled in each other. And how real that is, we just don't have the information to make that call, because all we can see is what Nick shows us.
I am always 2 steps ahead. All these unwell, unbalanced, disoriented beings roam the internet in search of stories. I'm monitoring ants on an ant farm. And people will consume these stories year after year after year. Stories that shock, that confuse, stories that are deliberately made to blur the boundaries between fact and fiction. You are the end.
It's easy to view Nikado Avocado as an extreme example of this. But while he is extreme, what he isn't is uncommon. There's a version of this happening with every creator you follow. Every creator puts a lot of work into controlling your perception of them. I mean, think about something as minor as a jump cut. Why was that there? It's there because they're trying to hide something, to remove some little imperfection, some small inflection or stumble of speech that goes against the image of themselves they are trying to establish in your mind, to create a persona. And that's true of every single creator, including me. Sometimes I get messages from people saying they like my videos because I seem genuine. And I have to ask, what about this seems genuine to you? This line I'm saying right now, I've read this line like 5 or 6 times, and I'm going to pick the one that makes me sound the most natural, the most confident, the most relatable. This line I'm saying right now, I've read this line like 5 or 6 times. I'm going to pick the one that makes me sound the most confident, relatable, the most relatable. How genuine is that? How genuine is any of this? I'm not standing in front of an infinite white void right now. This is a green screen. There's no music playing for me. That's something I consciously inserted after I shot this to try and control what you feel while watching it. I'm not even talking to you right now. I'm just reading words off a screen. Like, okay, like watch what happens when I do this. Okay, look at this teleprompter. Look at these lights. Does this look like something a normal, genuine person would have in their living room? No, this is all here because I want to appear a certain way in these videos. And I can tell you that this is all real, that I'm being genuine, but how do you know any of that? How do you know that any of this is real? That story earlier about me being a kid and the rounders and the robot, that didn't happen. None of that was real. And this photo, this isn't me. I have no idea who this is. This is just a stock photo I found on some website. And if it sounds like, oh, well, okay, now this is all real, this is the actual person. No, I'm still just reading off a teleprompter. When you watch my videos, you only experience the version of me that I let you, and how real that is, you can't know. Because what you're experiencing right now, it's not a person. It's a thing a person made. Oh boy, wow, this one's getting weird. Ultimately, what I'm getting at here is that the question this video asked was kind of doomed from the beginning. In truth, you can never really know another person, whether that's a YouTuber you follow, or the person sitting next to you, or a strange man in a TV show. Every person is their own internal universe, and that's a universe we will only ever get the most fleeting glimpses of. There's always going to be an infinite void between you and other people, and a lot of what life is attempting to navigate that void, traveling through it in hopes of finding something real. And I think in a way, that's what we've been watching someone do this entire video. For as silly as Nathan For You or The Rehearsal can be, they are this story of a person trying to find real human connection. There's something relatable about that, right? And sometimes it succeeds. Sometimes you might lead a bunch of people up a mountain in an elaborate riddle hunt for a tax rebate and find that the journey leads to moments of real sincerity and honesty. Then, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you surround yourself with what you think your life is supposed to look like, only to come face to face with the most frightening parts of yourself.
Do you want to feel something? Do you want to feel something real?
Yeah.
That's sad. You never will, no matter how hard you try. You never will.
You can never really understand another person. Human connection is not something you can force or engineer. It's messy and painful and complicated. It goes wrong and people get hurt. And that can be really hard. But that's kind of what I love about the work of Nathan Fielder. How much of it is an act or isn't, this is still the story of a person trying to traverse that void and touch something real. And he fails constantly in these hilarious and horrifying ways, but he's trying. And I think that's what we all do. What is Nathan Fielder? We all are. And I think that's kind of corny, but I think that's how I'm gonna end this video.